Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast. Now tonight we're going to take a look at the third installment of the Horror Stories trilogy. Now I just previously reviewed Horror Stories 1 and 2 during the past few weeks, so check out my review of those on this channel if you haven't already. And tonight we're going to cover Horror Stories 3 from 2016, an anthology of 4 short films with a total runtime of 94 minutes. And again, this is from South Korea. Now, I did find the official plot synopsis introduction online, which gives us an idea of how this trilogy fits together. Now, Horror Stories from 2012 was about the 4 horror stories told by a high school student girl who was kidnapped by a murderer. Horror Stories 2 from 2013 depicted horror about death and the world after death. Horror Stories 3 from 2016 plays a role as a bridge between the first and the second films because it concerns the past, the present, and the future. Now, the wraparound segment of this third installment is delivered in a unique setting borrowing from the science fiction genre of film. So we begin with that wraparound segment, which is called A Girl from Mars. Now, this is set in the year 2416 AD. And a little Martian girl who looks human seeks asylum at a space station run by robots. Now, her family was murdered by a space army from Earth, but the robots are hesitant to give her protection. So therefore, she decides to share some stories about humanity's vile nature in the hopes to convince the robots that they will let her stay. So first and foremost, this wraparound segment is set in space. Now, you got me already, because the visuals in this are very creative and engaging. The conversation between this girl and the robot takes place on like the top level of the space station, which has a water-like surface, but no atmosphere. So the whole segment feels like you're standing on a sheet of water in the middle of outer space. So it was pretty cool stuff. And the fact that you get to revisit this outer space segment in between the other stories, since it's the wraparound segment, allows for a huge variety of settings in this anthology, as we'll see. Now, this part of the anthology is lacking in scares. This wraparound segment, it's mostly kind of like a dramatic setup for the other ones. But I forgive that because this franchise, yet again, introduces an unusual and creative way to link the separate stories together. It's pretty cool stuff. Now, the first standalone story is called Fox Valley, which is set in ancient Korea. Now, a scholar is heading back to his hometown, but injures his leg along the way. Now, he comes across a desolate village and is invited to stay for the evening by an elderly man and his beautiful daughter. Now, the problem is that the town has been dying of pestilence and starvation, and the villagers believe that the nearby mountain is responsible for this. Apparently, this mountain is dying, and they're attempting to revive it. Now, I like this story, mostly because it's interesting and has some complexity to it. You have the odd beliefs of these villagers mixed in with some scares and mysterious events. Going from the outer space introduction to ancient Korea is a pretty striking juxtaposition that I really enjoyed. And it's always nice to see a horror film set hundreds of years ago, if only because, we really don't get to see them as often as we probably should. Production values are solid, some very nice lighting too. Some of the lighting and nighttime shots that are used have like this otherworldly dark red that's very ominous at times, which I really like. So I like this first standalone segment. It's pretty cool. The second standalone story is called Road Rage, which is set during the present day. A bickering couple are driving on a highway late at night, but get into some serious trouble when they anger a truck driver. Now, this is probably the most relatable segment, if only because there are many bad and angry drivers on the road in real life. So something like this probably happens on a daily basis, at least in America. It's got to. Now, that relatability also translates into the scares because if you place yourself in our protagonist's shoes, you definitely get a sense of vulnerability in this story. It's in the middle of the night, on a long stretch of highway with like no close exit ramps, and you're attempting to escape from a psycho in a huge truck with practically no other cars on the road to help you out. I thought this was very entertaining and a thrilling ride, actually. Lots of suspense from start to finish, and I also enjoyed the ending. Now, the third standalone story is called Ghost in the Machine, also known as Robot Spirit. Now, this is set in the relatively near future. It's about a single mother who uses an android in the form of a young boy to take care of her little son while she works. Unfortunately, the android is beginning to malfunction, and that creates a dangerous situation. So this is probably the creepiest story of the bunch, with enough horrific robotic imagery to satisfy anyone. Lots of suspense in this one, too, but it's a different kind of suspense than something like Road Rage. That story had more of like a dark horror thriller vibe to it, while Ghost in the Machine has more of a sci-fi horror vibe to it. And that's something that helps to distinguish Horror Stories 3 from its predecessors. The science fiction content was quite refreshing in this. So yes, I very much enjoyed this segment as well. There's really no weak links in this anthology. Every story has its merits and is interesting to watch. So overall, I say this anthology really does not waste much time. Really fantastic pacing and suspense in this. Lots of variety, too, in terms of like the time periods, the environments, and the premises. Acting and direction are solid all around. And some creative stuff here, too. So, yeah, I definitely recommend this one. And if I had to choose between Horror Stories 3 and the first installment as my favorite, I might actually choose this third installment. Probably the sci-fi visuals kind of give it the one-up for me. But, yeah, this is pretty solid stuff. Now, this is moderately available on Region 3 DVD with subtitles if you want to check it out. And as always, we will see you next time.